Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Grid Slot Gavra Racing podcast. And before we get going for the podcast, just have two things to mention. We unfortunately couldn't get Play Dutchy as a guest this week because something cropped up with his work. Nothing to do about that. But in his place, we do have Thunder5050, who we will be bringing in later on as our special guest. So anyway, without further ado, shall we get into the first story of this podcast, i.e. what happened this week in Gavra Racing? So, same as last week, what was your favourite race of the week, Tiger Assassin?
Well, I think I saw really two good races. I saw the Academy and I saw the Freshman, but I think for me the Freshman was the best race of the week. It was there was so much action. I'd lost my voice at the end of it. It was probably the best race of the season so far.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. What about you, Natty?
My favourite race might upset a few people, but it's got to be the GT Sport race for me. We had lots of overtakes really early on in the race and also many collisions, which is obviously interesting from a spectator's point of view. And different strategies changing up races with different fuel loads and tyre wear. So that was definitely my favourite race of the week.
So there we go. I think my favourite race, we're probably going to have to go with Tiger for the Freshman League. It was just an incredible race. I would say the race I was participating in the freshman series, not the freshman series, in the Premier series even. But yeah, I probably agree with Tiger on that one. So anyway, we're going to kick off by doing a race review of the Freshman League, seeing as that has been voted the most popular race this week out of us three for the second time in a row. So then, it was quite a race, obviously, as we were just saying, that played out. But I think a standout move there. And I know we talk about him too much on the podcast already, but Pepelec, that triple overtake around the outside, as nice as you like. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch the stream because it is an art form. It is one of the best moves I've ever seen on the F1 game, and I don't think it gets much better than that. I think you'd agree with that one, Tiger.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. I got the whole thing. I caught the whole thing, and it would believe it. There was who was involved in the overtake. It was Pope. Was Dirty Larry involved in it? I believe, and there was one other driver, and they all went side by side as they went into the corner, and obviously since they were running so slow, as they took the corner because they were battling with each other. Pepelec thought, well, why not just get the speed round the outside? And it was an absolutely amazing move. He got the move done at the end of that long DRS straight, and then he got moved on two of them, and then just coming out of the corner after that, he managed to get all three of them. It was an astonishing move, and that move really was the turning point of his race after having such a poor start. And he managed to get all the way back up into second position after an amazing comeback as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on, but he did actually jump the start in the Freshman League, and he got a drive-through from that one. So to come back through to second, although at the expense of Natty at the end there, it was a very impressive comeback from him. But moving on from Pepelec's heroic drive, we're going to go to Natty now, because his teammate, Tygat Antilopen, was actually taken out at the same corner where Pepelec did that overtake after a dive bomb from Dirty Larry. I believe he has got an LLP2 now for the next race in Brazil. But I don't know if you've seen the stream back, Natty, but what did you make of that move? Because you did catch it on camera.
Yeah, I've seen it back a few times. I reckon Dirty Larry's he's gone too late on the brakes and had nowhere to go. He's hit Antilopen. Really unfortunate for him because we were both scoring decent points for the constructors at the time, and yeah, disappointing to see him spin and almost to the back of the grid. I can't remember where he rejoined, but really unfortunate to have a teammate get taken out.
Yeah, so I think from the standings anyway, the Williams boys do seem to have the best lineup, just purely from a points perspective in the Freshman League. So if you're a Williams fan, please go and have a look at the Freshman League. It seems to be the only Formula One related thing where Williams are doing well at the moment. We'll go on to another question for you, Tiger. With Joe, I know you're quite close with him in the freshman league. He actually had a penalty to serve next week after that dive on overtake on Super Foxy. But before you answer, I just want to clear something up, right? So I saw in the chat on the replay of the race, people thought that I had accidentally said a swear word when I was trying to pronounce Brambo Superfuxia's name. Okay, so if you look on the standings page, right, it says Brambo Superfuxia. I know Tiger says it's Superfixer, probably to avoid the mistake that it sounded like I made, but I promise you that was it. That was I wasn't trying to do anything weird there. All right, so Tiger.
I mean, yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know why I call him Brambo Superfixer. Just kind of, that's how I just kind of started saying it.
Yeah.
Because some drivers have really poor names. And secondly, I think with Joe, I think it's. See, from a perspective, I'm trying not to be biased here because he's my mate, but what he does is from speaking to him definitely at the start of the season, he was struggling trying to get used to the traction because he's never really done full league racing on like the medium tractions. That's why he kept on spinning out a bunch of times. But he's put in a lot of practice, and I've seen the improvement. And I think sometimes he really he pushes too hard, and he goes for those kind of those ballsy moves as you'd say. But sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. But it makes the races interesting, and yeah, he does need to be a little bit more careful with his penalties and some of the moves that he does. But sometimes you have to go for those moves to get the positions, otherwise you can't get the overtake at all.
Yeah, I think when he pitted under the safety car there, his two-stop strategy kind of relied on him getting past the cars in front. So he did have to make those moves quickly, but I think we all need to remember that when you make a move, you have to do it cleanly. Otherwise, there's not really much point.
Definitely, yeah.
As moving on from that as well, Holland Campion, your current championship leader, who has one of the bigger followings in Gavra racing, I think. Definitely one of the bigger followings. I believe his brother also races in the Academy Series. As his championship actually took quite a hefty knock, so I'm sure that's good news for you, Xanatu. You currently sit fifth in the championship. But yeah, so with 2 races left, do you think that Lord Jedi can catch him? But that one's for both of you. I'll let Xanatu answer first.
I think it's going to be really close. I reckon last race in Abu Dhabi, I think tensions could rise between some of the drivers. Definitely in the Drivers' Championship, also constructors. 9 points separate first from third, so I reckon Holland Campion will win the championship.
Oh, so you've got one for Holland Campion. Controversial.
Bold 2-1 statement, that. Tony, well, obviously it's going to go down to the final race now, isn't it? After that race, so
yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that race. That's in 2 weeks' time, so I'm excited to see.
I think the next round is straight away now for the freshman league.
Yeah, no, because we've got one next Thursday and then the one the Thursday after.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks' time.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry, the season finale. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say that's going to be a really good race. Excited to see that one because especially if the standings go down to the wire, it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. So who's your pick for the championship then in the freshman league, Tiger?
Oh, I mean, Campion had a really bad race. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to go Lord Jedi.
Oh, Lord Jedi for the win in the freshman league then for Tiger Assassin. I'm probably going to go for, out of those two, I mean, Antelope still does have a chance mathematically, but he does kind of need the other two to crash out. I think if Campion can work on his quali a little bit for the next 2 races, he should wrap it up maybe. But I think that more or less every time that Lord Jedi's been in a car in the Gavra Racing Series, he's done something pretty good. So I'm going to go with him for the championship. Sorry, Campion fans, but I think I'm going to go with Lord Jedi.
It's interesting because I think someone like maybe the likes of Pepelec could have been up there because he was showing some extraordinary pace in qualifying, but his race pace was a little bit off, and he kept on making quite a few mistakes, which led him to such poor performances. So I think he was unlucky in not being up there. But yeah, I think it's going to be very close between them two at the top.
Yeah, definitely. As that more or less brings to an end, we're trying to like move through things quite quickly now because we've got quite a lot to talk about here. So that is the Freshman League. We're going to go straight on to the Academy race that you were also involved in, Tiger, as a commentator. But they also had like a really interesting race. Obviously, the title battle is like seriously heating up now between Pope and Mares. I believe, was it Mares who extended the championship lead
Mares
in the last?
Mares is leading the championship by, I think it's 8 points now. So they went into that race both actually joint first in the championship going into that race. So it was really interesting and to see. But the Pope didn't have the best of starts, so he managed to actually pull it back up into second. So he was showing some good pace actually, Pope. But yeah, it was a very very good race as well there in the USA. Two brilliant USA races this week. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Circuit of the Americas has provided like some really good racing in all leagues, to be honest, across the board. Unfortunately, my internet went out in my race, but I think from watching the stream back, it was quite a good one. There's also Jordi FIFA, who we were talking about, the brother of Holland Campion, scored his first points in the Academy Series. So good to see that, we could have potentially some sibling rivalry in the future in the Golden Crown Series, which is coming up soon, and we'll talk about that in the preview section. But anyway, we're going to go straight to my race and Natty's race, the Premier Series. So, I mean, Natty, you haven't had much to say. I feel like we haven't talked to you that much so far. So, shall we get a race review from your perspective?
Wow. It was an interesting race. I think I started 7th or 6th, but just got the greatest. I think I was like 4th into turn 1 or something. Just got a great start because slipstream down start finish straights. Obviously, really powerful, especially in Mexico, and had a good battle with Black Country Mush for pretty much the whole race there. So it's I do like them races where it's pretty tense in the midfield with myself and the Mercedes, but yeah, fun race. And hope to keep going and get some good points for the championship.
Yeah, definitely. So my race is a little bit different from Natty's. I mean, my championship rival at the moment, Shankster, he did win the race. Unfortunately for me, I was accidentally involved in an incident with a back marker, but it's all good between us now. We worked something out. I forgave him. And yeah. So going into the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is next week in the Premier Series, the championship can still be wrapped up if I finish ahead of Shankster in the championship. But a championship where a series of the championship can't be won anymore is the Super League because Play Duchy sewed that one up on Tuesday with a win in Mexico. So he has become the world champion for season 4 of the Super League. Moving into Project Cars 2 now, Faster _ A14 won in the Ferrari 333 SP race at the Red Bull Ring. It was a very nice track, the Red Bull Ring, actually. I don't know about you guys. I think we all raced on it, haven't we? I think 3 times, possibly. Yeah.
My first race win at
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I remember watching that one.
I definitely remember watching that one. As we have that moment. Definitely, as that track is coming out as for the next round of the GT Sport Championship round 3 is at the Red Bull Ring. So if you'd like to see some more of the Red Bull Ring, and I've said that many times in the past few minutes, if you'd like to see some more races around there, please tune into the GT Sport race, which me and Tiger Assassin race in and ex-Natty commentate on. And moving into continuing with Project Cars 2, Deck Paint has extended his Project Cars 2 Academy lead at the top of the championship, and Johnny has gained ground on his championship rival in the GT3 championship. And now moving on to the Gran Turismo Sport stuff, there was a tense battle for the first part of the race between the top 3. I think myself, Jojo Power, and Duke SL64. How did you find it from the commentator's perspective, Natty?
I loved it. Simple as that. It's so fun to watch three people battling for the lead at that track. Obviously, with the slipstream on the straights, and then you guys going two and then three wide sometimes into the hairpins. It's just so fun to watch, and I think that's what people do like watching when we do these races. It kind of, I'm not saying died down a little bit in the middle, but strategy definitely became the game in the middle part of the race, and then obviously at the end, you and Jojo obviously had another intense battling for the for second place, which is it's just great to see.
Yeah, I think Joe missed his braking point on the last lap or something like that, and he kind of walloped me from behind, and I was like, "Well, here we go." So here comes the bad stuff. But I mean, Tiger, shall we discuss your
a
race?
very more interesting race from my perspective. I had a to me, it was a disappointing qualifying. I only got 2 laps in. The first lap wasn't great, and the second lap I hit the grass coming out of which corner was it? It was in the first sector. I can't remember where it was. Hit the grass, and then that scuppered my qualifying because it's such a big track. You only get 2 laps of qualifying. So it was interesting, and then I made a move down the inside of Woody. Got the move done, then he hit me up the back end. It wasn't on purpose. It was accidentally. Apologized after, and that was, that was fine. And then I had a bit of a heated battle at the end, as you'd say, with me and Joe Black. It got very intense, but it's racing, and you just gotta go with it, and then move on to the next race.
Yeah, so I'm sure Tiger will be hoping to bounce back in Austria, but now,
hopefully,
as promised in the last episode, we are going to move into the driver interview section. So, as I said before, we couldn't get Play Dutchie on this week, but in his replacement, we have Thunder5050. Everyone, how you doing, Thunder?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, obviously, you're quite a new addition here at Gavra Racing, relatively new, but how are you finding things, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, so I'm Thunder5050, and I'm currently racing in the freshman series. It's my second series or season in Gavra, and yeah, it's a great league, and I really enjoy doing it.
No, it's always good to hear. And so I'll hand over to Tiger Assassin for the next question for Thunder.
Give me a second. There we go. Right, I was trying to. Here we go. How are you finding the freshman league so far, Thunder? Because I've seen all of your races, and you seem to have had good pace at the start. So I'm wondering how everything's going.
Well, yeah, in the freshman series, I'm doing okay for my first season in it. Obviously, it's very competitive, and there's some great pace in everyone. I'm finding it qualifying. I'm finding okay. I've had okay qualifying, but I'm finding it hard in my race pace. To be honest, I'm usually falling back in the races, and as we saw last race, I had a pretty bad race. So yeah, I'm finding it good. It's really competitive, and I really enjoy practicing for them and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you got a little bit unlucky there with strategy under the safety car in the freshman league. You switched to the hard tyres, I think, and that didn't really pan out too well at the end of the race because you had the 2 Mercedes, they had relentless pace at the end. So I think you got a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, when the safety car came out, I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. And I saw lots of people going on the mediums, and I was like, they're going to have to 2-stop. So I thought going on the hards might be a clever idea. But then when I saw I was the only person on the hards at the time, I kind of realised I've made a bit of a mistake. And then I got kind of gobbled up by the 2 Mercedes pretty quickly.
Yeah, I guess it happens to the best of us, I guess. And I think you were behind Natty for quite a while, though, for trying to follow his lines and stuff like that, just to try and bring your race pace up, as you said.
Yeah, I had a really bad start. I had a bit of lag off the line, I think. And I was a second late. And it looked like everyone jumped to start around me. And then I think I fell back to about 10th or 11th. And I've slowly moved back up, and I got behind the 2 Williams cars, and they were having a battle. And secretly, I was hoping them to crash, to be honest. But obviously, Team War just came in, so that didn't really happen.
All right, nice. I'll hand over to X Natty.
So, away from the track, who do you think you talk to the most out of the drivers?
A bit of a coincidence, probably Xnati, to be honest. We do a lot of racing. We just go into a lot of unranks together.
Well,
And
you're talking to him right now as well, so no pressure.
we haven't had a crash yet in the series. When I was coming up to him in the freshman in Austin, I was like, well, this could ruin our friendship, couldn't it?
Into team politics there, as I believe we're going to go on to the next question. So, obviously, with the points tally you currently have, Thunder, you're out of contention for the championship. Unfortunately, I'm sure you'll be a little bit frustrated with that. But for the next two races, do you think you'll be playing more of a secondary role to Lord Jedi, possibly to try and get the constructors and help him get the drivers' championship, or are you just going to try and do your own thing?
Well, to be honest, we haven't had too much communication. None of us have really breached out to each other. But obviously, if he's behind me, I think in Austria I let him by because he was way faster. We were doing well in the constructors. I think we were leading it up to Germany, and then Red Bull took us over. But in Belgium, I don't think Lord Jedi could make it. So we only had my points after the score, so we dropped down a bit, which is a bit annoying. But I'm not sure about the constructors at the moment.
I think the top three are only covered by about, 7 points you said, Natty, before?
Well, I think Red Bull leading the way on 129, Racing Point behind them, 2 points behind on 127, and Williams closely behind on 120.
Yeah, and also I think Colin Campion has got the majority of the points for Red Bull. I think his teammate Cryptek currently sits in 10th. He's been struggling a little bit, but I think the other two teams in that, I think you said Williams and Red Bull, you both have Williams and Racing Point, your team, done. You both have very solid lineups, and your qualifying pace was only a 10th off Lord Jedi, and he's challenging for the championship. So I think without that glitch at the start, you would have been in a much better position.
Yeah, I remember in qualifying, I just couldn't get a lap together. I kept on in the S's. I just couldn't get them together, and then my final lap, I finally got them all together. But going around the last corner, I thought I'd accidentally cut it, so I went really slow around it. And I probably, if I didn't mess that up, I might have got pole, but I don't know.
So I'll hand over to you, Tiger, for the next question.
God, you always come to me when I'm not ready. For the next season, whether that's on F1 2020 or F1 2019, will you stay in the freshman league, or will you try to move up the ladder into the Premier or Super League?
I think I'm going to stay in the freshman for at least another season because I moved up from the academy quite quickly, mainly because the day didn't really suit me. But then in the freshman, I think I just needed a bit, as you said, my qualifying pace has been pretty good. But during the race, I think my strategy and my aspect to my race needs to kind of improve before I move up the ranks. So I think I just need to learn a bit more. And then, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, I mean, if you ever want some more experience, like if I can wrap up the championship next week in Brazil, you're more than happy to deputize for me in Abu Dhabi if you'd like to get some more experience of that.
Yes.
Or I'm sure X-Natty will hopefully vacate. See, I think you're still in the championship battle. Actually, X-Natty's probably not the best idea. But I'll give you the next question then.
Oh, so do you think in the future you'll see yourself changing to like the GT3 or GT Sport or any other different leagues within Gavra Racing?
To be honest, my favorite game on the PlayStation is probably F1. I've been playing that game for the longest. I have like Project Cars and Assetto Corsa and GT. Obviously I started doing a bit of commentary on GT Sport, but I'm not very good at either of those games. So I think I might just stay with F1 for now and get particularly good at F1. And yeah, I can't really see myself moving over anytime soon.
Oh, it's fair enough. It's good to know your craft. And finally, final question for you, Thunder. We've taken up quite a bit of your time already. But anyway, so you were commentating on the Gran Turismo Sport Championship, actually, at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Like, did you like the race? I hope you liked the race because me and Tiger were racing in it. So how did you find the commentating?
I really enjoyed commentating. Obviously, since we're all in lockdown at the moment, I started commentating on my own league races, but obviously that's a bit boring with nobody, and nobody really watches them. So I decided, I saw Natty was doing them by himself, so I gave him a DM. Obviously at the start of the broadcast, I had some audio issues. I forgot to put on a setting, so that was a bit awkward. But once I noticed that, I actually really enjoyed doing the commentary. Obviously, I kind of butchered both your names. I think I called you Tiger Grasson instead of
That's brilliant.
and I called Tucson for a while.
That's actually close to the right spelling. So
Ooh, he doesn't like it when you say that. He gets angry. I've heard him before. We were in the commentary box and he was going. My name's not Toussaint. It's Toussaint. he was having to go because everyone was getting his name wrong. So
yeah, it's been a problem for a while. I might just change my PSN to unlimited chicken, at least then people won't get it wrong. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Thunder. We're trying to have you on again at some point, but yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I really enjoyed listening to your podcast last time. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Hope to see you
See
again
you later.
soon.
See ya.
I think I cut him off a little bit too early there, but sorry about that one, Thunder. But yeah, nice to have him on the podcast. So if you'd like to be involved in the podcast in the way that Thunder just was, drop any of us a personal message. I believe we have a chat in the Discord now, so please go check that out if you want to be involved. Anyway, we are going to move on to real world stuff. So if you're here for the real world stuff, I'll leave a timestamp in so you can skip the stuff you don't want to watch. Anyway, so we had a bit of musical chairs this week with Sebastian Vettel on, I think it was Thursday, something like that. No, Monday even, the day after we recorded the podcast.
Yeah, it was annoying because we recorded podcasts on Sunday and then bam, we got the news out that Vettel was leaving. And then we were like, all right, okay. And then there was all that speculation that came out, and then the news finally came in the day after.
Yeah, so obviously we hope that doesn't turn into a bit of a podcast curse there. We're probably going to find out that Fernando Alonso's been announced a second after I put this up on YouTube. But we'll get on to that in a little bit then. So just to give you a brief overview of what's happened if you've been living under a rock for the past week. So on Monday,
what have you been doing for the past week?
Exactly.
There's nothing to do.
So on Monday, it was announced that Sebastian Vettel would not extend his current contract with Ferrari beyond 2020. Then I believe a day after, I think McLaren announced that Ricciardo was going to be joining them from 2021.
No, say that again.
Ricardo, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's going in the bloopers. And that Ricardo. His name is spelled Ricciardo. He says it Ricardo anyway. So and then the day after, McLaren announced that Ricardo would be joining them, indicating he would be leaving Renault, where he's now. And then on the same day, a couple of minutes later, I saw on the F1 app anyway, Ferrari announced that Carlos Sainz would be joining them for 2021 and beyond. But what this has done is, whilst that drama has been mostly sewn up, what's going to happen to the spare Renault seat? I'll come to you, Natty, because you have some questionable thoughts on this.
Well, I reckon I read a few weeks ago that Renault weren't actually interested in re-signing Daniel Ricciardo, and we're looking at an F2 driver. I can't remember his name, but I reckon they'll give that seat to either a younger F2 driver, or unless we hear about any other current F1 drivers moving teams. But just it would be great if you could. I know it's so far fetched, but if Fernando Alonso was to come back into F1,
I think it's
back into his championship winning team, it would be something remarkable. I
think that if Fernando were to come back, it wouldn't be for Renault, not with the form they've had in the last year. Like he came back, he's come back saying that he wants to win the championship. If he just goes straight back to a midfield team, that I don't think he'll do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, would Renault even want that pressure as well?
Mm.
Yeah, so I'll come to you next, Tiger, with your views on what's going to happen to the other Renault seats.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting, the whole thing, really. Because if you've noticed, I've been speaking to a lot of people, and they've been saying roughly the same thing, that ever since Ferrari had that season where Raikkonen and Vettel, they had a good start, and then it just flopped off at the end. They've seemed to have gone for young drivers, and obviously you could see that in Leclerc. They went for a young driver, and it worked for them. And you can see here that once again they've gone for another younger driver. But it's interesting to see, because what they've done really is they've gone for like someone who was higher in the championship last year. But I was thinking it would have been Ricciardo would have gone to Ferrari, because of just the stats that he's got behind him and the race wins he's had, and that he shows that he can win a race in a good car and a decent car in F1. So it was interesting to see, but it'd be interesting who comes in for Renault, because there's not really much room for movement, and it'll be interesting to see whether Vettel retires or whether he goes into a different team, and then whether there's some more musical chairs with drivers, because there's obviously a space open, which would make sense for just Vettel to just pop in that space, but obviously it's not as easy as that. So
yeah, exactly.
It's interesting really to call on who can go in there, because it could be a lot of people who could get into that Renault seat. It could be, I mean, George Russell, I mean, he didn't have, obviously the Williams car it wasn't really the best last season. Like it was pretty off the pace compared to the rest of the cars, but he still did an all right job in there, and he was looking like a promising driver. So, he could maybe get the seat. Could be a bunch of other young drivers as well. But it'll be interesting to see who gets in there.
As I'm gonna throw a name into the mix I don't think anyone's actually talked about for the Renault seat yet, and that is Pierre Gasly. Okay, so I know he had a difficult 2019, and I think you two might disagree with me on this, but if you look at it from Renault's point of view, Pierre Gasly probably isn't ever going to drive a Red Bull again. That's my own personal belief. Currently driving the AlphaTauri. He's a young French driver. He's got plenty. He's still in his youth. I believe he's about 20. I think he's older than 24, but still, he's got loads of time to develop. Still got a long career ahead of him potentially. I think he wants to get out of that Red Bull toxicity kind of that's been created. And Renault presents itself as a French team from a PR point of view. It makes 100% sense to me. Like, he's not a bad driver. He just had he showed that detail in 2019. But I think that it's Pierre Gasly for that second Renault seat in 2021.
And obviously Esteban Ocon being the driver, would be his teammate if he were to move. I think there'd be a good relationship between them two as teammates.
Yeah, that's interesting now, because we're going to have a full, fresh Renault lineup next year. So obviously, Ocon in, Hulkenberg out, Ricciardo out. Who's going to come in? So it's going to be interesting, to see. But there's a good point actually about Gasly. But the only thing I have about that is that Toro Rosso, in reality, had a better season last year than Renault did. So it would be whether Gasly would want to move or not to Renault, and have faith in Renault to have a better season this year or next year than the AlphaTauri. So it'd be interesting to see whether he would move or not.
Yes, maybe his loyalties to Red Bull might override his desire to go to a works team, I guess, because right now the point of that Red Bull, the AlphaTauri team even, is to be, it's a junior team for Red Bull, and I don't think he wants to be there for the whole of his career. He wants to be fighting for podiums and for wins, and I think Renault probably offers more of a chance of doing that than AlphaTauri do at the present moment. As we're going to move on to Carlos Sainz. Is he the right man for Ferrari? I'm going to go to you, Tiger.
Yes and no.
As indecisive as always.
Yeah. I can't make decisions. It's interesting because obviously last season he had a really good season in that McLaren. I think it was his best season, wasn't it, since he was in the Red Bull, I believe. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I was just surprised that they went with Sainz over. I would have thought Ricciardo would have tried to jump in there, because I just overall Ricciardo has the better statistics and the more experience of being higher up there in the top teams than Sainz does. So it's going to be interesting. But it's from what we see in the McLaren, he can do some really good stuff. So if he's put in a faster car, then he could potentially do some good stuff. Him and Leclerc could be a good team at Ferrari. So we'll have to see.
What about you, ex-Natty? Or do you believe that Sainz is the best person for that Ferrari seat at the moment?
I reckon out of Sainz and Ricciardo, I think it was the better option for Ferrari, and probably even Ricciardo, because Leclerc had an amazing season last season against Sebastian Vettel, and I think what Ferrari were looking for is a quick and talented driver who could be their number two, and let Leclerc be their number one driver, because I don't think Ricciardo would be quite happy at Ferrari if he was respected as a number two driver. So I reckon Sainz, with his young age and potential, will do well at Ferrari.
And obviously he's going to cost less than Ricciardo as well from that Renault seat. But for me, I'm actually going to disagree with the second driver point there, Natty, actually. So I think that if you're Ferrari, right, you have a wealth of young drivers. You've got Giovinazzi in the second seat. You don't, in Alfa Romeo even, you wouldn't go for Carlos Sainz if you just want, like a clear number two driver. I think if you're going for that, you would take Giovinazzi and put him in that Ferrari, because he will do whatever you say as Ferrari. I think Carlos Sainz, they wanted someone, I think, a little bit like Vettel, but without the accidents and the incidents. They need someone who is capable of winning races and actually pushing Leclerc.
I was just about to say, that I think it's mainly on the basis of, especially for the team, you don't just want a second driver who is just there to fill in and to sort of to be there and act as a second driver. You want that person to obviously, as you said, push the other driver, but also you want them to get in a good amount of points, and you want them to win races every now and then. So especially for the constructors championship, that they get up there and they win. But it's like, like the likes of sort of Bottas and Hamilton. You can see that Hamilton is the number one driver, and he probably always has been since he joined Mercedes. But Bottas has won races, and he's brought in the points for Mercedes. So I think it kind of works on the line of sort of like that, as in, like, you want both drivers to bring in good amount of points. You want them to both win races, but one of them's going to slightly edge over the other. So
yeah, I would agree with that mostly. I think that Ferrari have made a very good move there, signing Sainz. I think he's younger than Ricciardo. He's going to cost less than Ricciardo. Sorry, Ricciardo, not Ricciardo. Don't want to get slated again. But yeah, I think that Sainz was the best possible choice that Ferrari could have made. As what that means for Ricciardo, though, and his championship ambition, is that he's spoken about many a time. Being rejected for that Ferrari seat now, I personally think that he isn't going to win a championship. I know McLaren are on the up and everything, but I can't see a championship coming from that McLaren team very soon.
It'll be interesting to see when McLaren change engine and they change how they do everything, whether they try to go back to being McLaren Mercedes, or whether they try and go in a new direction and try and just become McLaren as a whole. Because I think obviously you've got the Mercedes team, so I don't think they're really going to try and go down that way. But I think it's going to be a few years before we see McLaren back up there, maybe winning consistently. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I think they could possibly try and jump into those top three teams and try and make a top four battle in a few years' time, and try and just sort of mix it up. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope they do, because it'll make it a lot more interesting, a lot more exciting in the championship and in the battles on the track as well. So be very interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Natty?
Well, with the departure of Vettel, we've obviously seen Ricciardo's keen on moving team. So Hamilton and Bottas have been at Mercedes for quite a long time. So whether they will renew their contract or not, whether they'll move a new team, I think driver transfer, like if different drivers in like the upper teams decide to move teams, I think that will leave. I think if Ricciardo gets an opportunity to join Mercedes or even Ferrari again, I think he'll definitely take it. And you never know, maybe he'll get one championship in.
Yeah, maybe. I guess never say never.
I can see Ricciardo at Mercedes. Like, I can see that as a thing happening, but I can't see it right now. I think it would have to be someone like Bottas or Hamilton it would have to be someone like maybe Hamilton a few years retires and says, I've won my championship, I've broke all the records. And then it would be something like that. Or for Bottas to then leave and go to a different team, it would be having to something like that. But I think the Mercedes team's solid at the moment, so I don't think that'll happen for a few years. So I think I think it's gonna be interesting whether Ricciardo stays and has faith with McLaren, or whether he does actually move when an opportunity breaks for a position up there. But I can see if he's been rejected by Ferrari, his only really option now is Mercedes, unless he goes back to Red Bull, but that's not very likely after what happened, which is why he moved to Renault. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. As that's going to bring to a close the real world section, as we're now going to go into the much requested Q&A section. So we had some interesting questions, particularly for you, Natty. We'll get onto that in a little bit. But our first question, I believe it's from Curry Master 123, something like that.
Curry Killer 123, yeah.
Curry Killer 123, yeah. So he asks me, I've been watching the Premier Series, and if you were to pick anyone from the Premier Series to be your teammate for next season, who would it be, and what team would you drive for? So I've given a little bit of thought to this, and I probably would say Shankster, purely because, like, they're both like really quick. It'd be kind of fun to see us both in the same team, maybe.
Just be like Mercedes in real life. You would just win.
Well, I mean, if we were teammates this year, and we're gonna be in the Golden Crown series. We'll talk about that right at the end of the podcast.
Would you not move up to Super?
Yeah, I think he is as well, but I think the question was about the Premier Series. So.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd probably pick Shankster. I mean, if we were almost teammates this year, because before the championship started, Gavra asked me if I wouldn't mind being in the Racing Point, but I was already using it in my career mode, and I was a bit sick of looking at it, so I was like, could I go no Toro Rosso instead? So I think the second question is for you, Tiger.
Oh, it is. So, will you ever finish a race ahead of Toussaint? Well, thank you for that.
Nope.
But that's, whoa, hang on a second. I'm gonna answer it. And what skills in the real life world do you have that you think are better than Toussaint and Natty? Well, I'll answer your first question. No. I think it'd have to be
he gets the wheel.
I think it would have to be a miracle for something to happen. Unless I get a wheel, yes. I just get a wheel and then overpower his wheel, and then try and beat him. But it would, hopefully I can try and pick up some pace in GE Sport and try and see if I can get some luck. But and the other question, well, you see, I don't really know these two too much to make a list. I mean, I play a lot of football. I play a lot of other games other than just racing games, a lot of shooters. What else do I do? I've got a lot of, Rainbow Six Siege. What other stuff have I got? I've got a lot of animals. Good with animals. What else?
You've got to pick one, Tiger. I'm just saying.
Okay, I'll pick one because I know it's a definite, right? So ever since, okay, we're going to go into a bit of a story time here, everyone. So sit down. I hope you're sitting comfortably and ready to listen. Okay, so
Popcorn.
get your popcorn. Yes. So ever since I was little, my parents used to take me to theme parks. So I used to go to Alton Towers and Thorpe Park and all of that. And as I grew up, I really, really got interested into them. And this may sound a bit geeky or a bit sort of boring to some of you, but to me, it's not. Okay, because everyone has all their hobbies and all their stuff. So but yeah, my knowledge in that department is outstanding. You could ask me any question about anything, and I could give you the answer. I'm not even joking. That's what everyone says. Jamie being sincere. I hear you laughing in the background, but right, that is, I'd say, the one skill which I have is my knowledge in that department. But yes, there we go.
Yeah, I can safely say that is knowledge that I definitely don't have. I don't know about X-Natty.
Same here.
All right, I think the last one from Curricular is for you, X-Natty.
Yeah, so he's watched my race on Monday at the Mexico Grand Prix, and he's to be honest, he's seen me do better and put in brackets Austria, so thanks for that. But his question is, why do I seem to like Ribena so much, and how do I prepare for a race? So, I don't know why I like Ribena so much. It's just, one of them things you drink and then you keep drinking. Not referring to anything dodgy, but
that sounds like something else. That was an alcoholic live on the podcast.
And then, how do I prepare for a race? Well, I start by I do some quick practices before races. I obviously eat and drink, so I don't need to do any of that before a race. But yeah, I always go out on the harder tyre in qualifying. It's just my style, my thing, and that's just what I do: eat, drink, practice, repeat.
Eat, drink, and practice.
Sleep, rave, repeat.
Yeah, exactly.
Not eat, drink, practice.
Sorry.
Go back to my thing. If you want to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can do. But carry on, please.
All right, I think we've got a question from Woody, who has asked, why did you guys decide to do commentary for Gavra Racing? Well, for me, it was just Gavra said that there's a free spot on the freshman league, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll do some commentating. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then, yeah, that's how we went from there. I think, well, Tiger, you joined as a commentator to begin with, so shall we have your experience?
Yeah, I was actually commentating for a different league, which is a league that is no more. It is no more. No, it kind of, people didn't turn up, and it kind of just faded away, and then the league, something happened to the league on it anyway. I did a commentary on a race, and then I went on my messages, and I was like, I've received a message. I was like, this must be interesting. I went, it's either a driver, it's either someone having a go at me for something, or it's it's a good message. Went on, and then got a message from Gavra saying that he said he watched the race. He was thoroughly enjoyed my commentary, and wanted me to come join. So I came in, started my commentary in the Academy League, and then when the new freshman league came out, I joined that as well. And then that's how me and Toussaint, mainly Matt, really was on the freshman league, yeah. And then it kind of just went on from there. I think he's trying to get me in for the Golden Crown series, but don't tell anyone. Don't tell any other commentators that.
There's only two other ones in the podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna all comment. Yeah, but you two be driving.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
You
Yeah.
can see what Duke does.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's basically how I got in. He saw my commentary and loved it and wanted me to join. So I did so, and I'm really happy I did.
So, was the experience any different for you, X-Natty?
Well, when I first joined Gavra Racing, I went onto their website. I looked at all the things they'd done, and I noticed a GT Sports section, and didn't have a league set up at the time. And then when I saw the announcement made that the GT Sport League was starting, I was already in 2 F1 leagues. So I thought I really wanted to get involved with the GT Sport League. So I messaged Duke, and then I got myself into the commentary box.
Well,
So
nice.
yeah, that's my
I think,
story.
I think Tiger's actually failed to give a shout out to Evan. I'm sure he's very disappointed with you, Tiger.
Oh, Evan! No, hang on. I've got to give a shout out to Evan. Okay, so the first person I commentated with was Evan. Actually, it wasn't. I had 2 other people I started commentating with. I had 2 people, 2 different races, and then Evan came in, and then me and Evan have commentated the academy ever since. And yeah, we are the original partnership, and we'll always will be. And yeah, so you know,
There's comforting
Don't
words
get
there for
angry.
Evan. We hope to have you on the podcast
we'll get you on the
soon, mate.
podcast at some point, Evan. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right.
Whether you like it or not.
It's Geordie Spetjens. I'm sorry, I can't.
Do you want me to try and pronounce it?
Yeah, you go.
Geordie Speckens, I believe.
Okay. All right. So, and he has asked, who is the most talented driver in the freshman league? I'll let Natty answer that one.
Decent.
Well, there could be many. I have a few drivers who I do like driving with. I think from my racing experience, counting myself out of it, I would say I'm gonna go with Holland Campion, based off what I've seen from him.
Okay.
When we've been practicing together, he is pretty quick, and yeah, I think he's.
So I think Natty's become a bit of a Holland Campion fanboy. Already thinks he's going to win the championship. Like, come on.
Throughout this podcast, he has us at ease.
All right. I think for me, I'd have to say, and I'm gonna go with Pepelec, purely because, like, you know, he's
like
so
Pepelec.
quick and quali, and he substituted for a Ferrari driver in the Premier Series, and I mean he led, like, you know, most of the race until his TV turned off and he hit a wall. So I'd have to say Pepelec, because I think what I've seen from him has been very impressive so far.
For me, I think it has to be Tucson 0208, even though he's in the commentary box. Because, you know, he wins everything. But no, seriously, I think Pepelec is amazing. Lord Jedi's good as well. Lord Jedi's a brilliant driver as well. I think there's a kind of few really good drivers in there who've shown a lot of potential in the freshman league. So, Timf as well. Another driver who seems to struggle, doesn't he, Toussaint, a little bit in the Premier Series.
Yeah, his results have been less consistent with what he's shown in the Premier and Academy Series in the Premier. But he was challenging Shankster for a podium finish in Austin. But yeah,
I mean, there's quite a few drivers. Yeah, there's quite a few drivers. I think I'm probably going to have to go with Pepelec as well. Definitely after this week, that move and that comeback, closing down 15 seconds to come back and get a second was astonishing. Like,
definitely.
It was amazing. To go close down 15 seconds in an F1 race is nigh on impossible, really. Like, unless one person's on like 30 lap hards and the other one's on like 1 lap softs. So it's, you know, it's you know, he's showed some miraculous pace in qualifying and in the race, especially last week. So
I think I'm gonna let Natty read out the next one. The next question from Matt from Wii Sports.
So Matt from Wii Sports, if you are watching, thanks for your question, mate. It's very not a topic I've often talked about, but until what age did I wet the bed? To be honest, I don't remember. Certainly wasn't last night or the night before. It wasn't anything recent, so yeah, I don't have any troubles in that category there.
Give us a ballpark figure, Natty.
I don't know.
Come on, a rough estimate of what
I can't
age.
remember.
What age did you stop?
He's taken a while to think about it.
He is.
I can't say. I don't know what the. I don't know. That's my final answer. I don't know.
All right, okay. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
We'll move
Sorry,
on.
Matt.
We'll
Sorry, Matt
swiftly
from
move
Wii
on.
Sports.
You
We
could
can't give
Google
you a
the average
definitive
age and
answer.
then just go off that.
Google.
Google the average age.
That's me.
All right. So, we're gonna go
that's-
to the next one. We'll go to the next one.
Oh,
As Mehdi Karfazar has asked, are any of you flat earthers? I'm pretty sure Tiger is.
oh, wow. Nah, don't pin this on me. I'm actually not. I'm not. I don't understand, right, why people say the Earth is flat, okay? You can clearly see, right, from all the scientific evidence, from the film and the pictures that have been taken from space, from the way the land lies, the way the ocean lies, you can see that there is something called a horizon, flat earthers. So the Earth is not flat, it is spherical, it has a core, so end off.
I think you touched a bit of a nerve there with Tiger. Like,
I'm just saying
that was a full-blown rant.
It's not flat. I'm just justifying that I'm not a flat earther.
I don't know. We are not flat earthers, Medical. Sorry to disappoint you. As we finally got like, a fairly serious question after the last two. So I'm not quite sure who this is.
Oh, I can find out for you. Give me a second. I can.
All right, but
You read the question out, and I'll put them out.
All right, cool. And they have asked if we're going to make a league for Assetto Corsa Competizione because I can't do Spanish, Italian. So to be honest, I've had a conversation with Jukebox, who is crazy about Assetto Corsa. He really likes the game. We are looking into doing a potential championship on Assetto Corsa, obviously depending with when we can get the next round of championship started and stuff like that. But to answer your other question about whether we're going to be holding like 12, 9-hour and 6-hour team races, we'd love to do that. We'd absolutely love to do that, but it depends what options the developers give us in the game. So obviously I think things like driver swaps are something that if we get them in the game, we'll definitely look into doing that. But obviously if we can't, it's not really feasible to do 12-hour, 24 hours.
Has anyone ever seen, quite a lot of people know, but if you're in GT Sport, for example, you can do a 24-hour endurance race, but there's no driver swap. So I don't know how they expect in GT Sport, but to do a 24-hour race and not like swap drivers. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, it'll depend on how the game does it. Yeah. Some games do and some games don't they? So.
Yeah, so to answer your question, it purely depends on what options that the developers choose to give us on console. But anyway, that is the end of the Q&A.
That question, by the way, was from Sam John Jan. I'm probably if I've pronounced that wrong, but that's what his name is on Instagram. So,
but anyway, that's the end of the Q&A. If you want to get involved in the podcast using the Q&A, we now have a chat in the Discord server, so please join the Discord server. You can message Tiger Assassin like Alex did for the last question, or you can message me or XNatty either on Instagram or Twitter, I believe it is. Or if you want to, you can leave your questions in the comment section down below. So we got most of these for this week. And just to round off the podcast, we're going to talk about the Golden Crown series. So what the Golden Crown series is it is a 4-round race, 4-round season that takes place after all the F1 stuff is finished this year. It will exhibit drivers from the Academy, Freshman, Premier Series, and Super League, and we're all going to battle it out to see who is the best. Well, which championship is the best championship, basically. And, it's probably going to be a Super League, but you can tune in anyway.
You never know.
You never know. I mean, yeah, I'm going to stick it to play Dutchy. Each round contains 2 races, a 50% and a 25% race. We're still figuring out what we're going to exactly do with qualifying. But please, if that's something that interests you, please, if you're in the championships, participate in it. If you're not and you just want to watch the races, they will be live streamed and broadcasted on YouTube. I believe Tiger Assassin will be commentating on that, so you have the pleasure of hearing his voice.
Oh, yeah, my lovely voice.
But so that's going to bring to an end episode 2 of the podcast. A bit of a longer one this time. I think it's over an hour, judging from my timer that I have up here. But I hope you have all enjoyed it. And we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.